As we pass American Thanksgiving, we're going to find out which teams are for real and which teams are pretenders. Plus, the Senators prepare for Brady Tkachuk's return and the best games of the weekend. All that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the Friday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And thank you for helping to make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. I'm Gil Martin from Locked On Islanders. I'm here every Friday with Rachel Donner of Locked On Flyers. And happy Friday, Rachel. How was Thanksgiving?
It was good. Very appropriate that the two of us are talking today, given that the Islanders and Flyers are one of today's games.
Yeah, going to be fun. First time this year that our two teams are facing off, and always a great rivalry dating all the way back to when the Islanders first came into the league. First off, Brady Tkachuk coming back to the Ottawa Senators. They're playing pretty well without him. What does this mean for Ottawa?
I mean, you would think it would be only good things, right? Because it just adds to what they're able to do. And I think he's been such an integral part of their team culture that I really don't think it'll upset any apple carts there.
No, I think you're right. It will only add something. And I guess when a player like Brady Tkachuk with his physical style comes back from an injury, you kind of wonder how he can get back to playing the style he plays if he's not 100% healthy.
Yeah, I mean, when guys come back from injuries like this, they're never 100%, right? But you also have to kind of warm up to things. And so we'll see how many minutes he gets in the first game back. I think that will be a tell in terms of what the plan is to get him, back going. But the other thing about it is that, it was a thumb injury, right? So he should have his skating legs.
Yes.
Ostensibly. It'll just take a while to get back into game mode in terms of the maintenance, right? But I think that that's an important part, that in terms of the fitness level, he should be ready to go.
Yeah, the fitness level shouldn't be a problem. It's taking and giving a lot of hits that may be part of the issue for him, but we'll see. I can't imagine him not playing physically, so we'll see how he and the Senators handle that. But definitely good news in Ottawa. And wanted to take a look at the old adage in hockey: you get to American Thanksgiving, and what is it? 77% of the teams last year that are in a playoff spot at American Thanksgiving made the playoffs. And yet I look at this and I kind of wonder whether or not that's going to be the case this year, because the teams are just so bunched together, especially in the East. And I just wanted us to take a look at who's real and who may not be real. Let's start in the East right now. First place in the East, the New Jersey Devils, and yet they have to do it without their best player in Jack Hughes.
Yeah, and they've had to deal with not having Jack Hughes before, so it's something they're experienced with. He's been a little injury prone, so I don't think that's a huge factor for them. Now, what is a huge factor for them is that they are infinitely better at home than they are on the road. And so, if they end up going on a big road trip, that's going to be the first big test for them this season.
Yeah, 9-0-1 at home, 6-7 on the road. They've already played 3 more road games than home games, so that's a little bit of a good sign there for the Devils. Right behind them, 2 teams, Tampa Bay and Carolina. Those are teams that a lot of people expected to be at or near the top of the conference. Are those 2 teams for real?
Yeah, I think Tampa is definitely exceeding expectations for me. I thought they were going to be good, but this good, This
Yeah.
early, maybe not. I just felt like there was a little bit of chemistry to work out there, some changes that, needed to take a while to take shape, but they've been generally very good this whole season, winning, 5 games in a row as of today. And I do think Tampa is definitely the for real team here. Carolina, I have questions about their consistency. We've talked in the past about their regular season consistency, and then it's the playoffs where you have to worry about them to some degree. But their regular season consistency has not been as strong as it was like the last couple of seasons, I would say.
Yeah, I would say that's right, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle the next few months of the season where things could kind of go either way. How about the Ottawa Senators? I mean, again, it's so crowded. Ottawa, fourth place in the conference, tied with, 3, 4 other teams, and only 3 points behind the Devils. But Ottawa, 12-7-4. Are they for real? Because, we're talking about Brady Tkachuk coming back, but they really seem to be heading in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, and we kind of expected Ottawa to be a little bit better last year, and that didn't really come to fruition. I mean, they did, but it just wasn't quite as significant a step forward as we would have liked. And so I think they really took it upon themselves to be like, all right, this is a clean slate for us, and it's a new team, it's a new year, and we're going to take what we did last year and build on it. And so far so good, and especially in their last 10, they've been generally really good. And I don't know what the long-term prognostication is on them because we just don't have the information, the data of past experience. It's like, is this a team that fights to come back from a deficit, or is this a team that can hold on to a lead? We just don't know. And I think that's what's the most interesting part of the Senators this year.
3 other teams with 28 points right now, and I think these are teams that are kind of at a crossroads that we don't know how real they are. Washington, the Islanders, the Bruins. What are your thoughts on those 3?
Well, I mean, I think everybody thought the Bruins were going to be garbage this year. And so the fact that they're playing so well generally has been a really pleasant surprise, I think. You know, they're definitely, again, a team that's much, much better at home than they are on the road. But I do think that, this is an endurance race. And I feel similar to the way I feel about, a team like Detroit, as I do with the Bruins, or, you know, what's the other team that like Carolina? Like, I feel like Boston and Carolina have a lot of similarity here in terms of, can this be sustainable through the whole season?
How about the Islanders? 13-9-2 surprised a lot of people. Obviously, Matthew Schaefer has given this team a jolt of energy, but can they sustain this surprisingly good start?
You're the better person to answer that question than I am, covering the team day to day, right? But I think that, they've also got a couple more games played than some of the other teams that, that are above them. If you look at, points percentage as opposed to just pure points here in the standings, the Islanders drop way down because they've played more games. There, and a couple of teams, 3 teams with fewer points jump above them in the conference standings there. But, I think they're just a team that doesn't have a lot of wiggle room to make adjustments. And so this team is what it is. And I don't know that it can get any better, but I don't think it's going to get any worse either. And it'll depend on what everybody else around them does.
The Pittsburgh Penguins, nobody expected them to do particularly well. Now they've cooled off a bit, 3-4-3 in their last 10, but they're holding on to that last playoff spot right now. +8 goal differential. Are they for real, or are they pretenders?
I mean, I think they're pretenders because I think eventually they're going to break and somebody's going to get hurt, and that will be that. I I just don't see how this is sustainable. Now, prove me wrong, but I just don't see it. Like, I want to check in again right before the Olympics.
Also at 27 points right now, Montreal, your Philadelphia Flyers, and the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, I think, Montreal started off like with a bang, right? And they've had a much rougher last couple of weeks. And so have slipped a little bit here. Whereas, the Flyers have done the opposite in some ways. And I don't know that this is sustainable with the Flyers either. I feel like Montreal and the Flyers are gonna be pretty close in the conference standings when all is said and done at the end of the year. I think Montreal is maybe 1 to 2 years ahead of the Flyers in terms of rebuild and potential and making significant playoff runs. But I do think, it'll just depend on the top guys for Montreal because the top guys for Montreal are much better than the top guys for the Flyers.
The Columbus Blue Jackets, 1 point behind the teams we just mentioned, as are the New York Rangers. But are either of these teams good enough to make a playoff run? And can the Rangers do anything good at home?
No, I mean, for the Rangers at any rate. I think, Columbus, they just need to get their scoring going. That's been a problem, right? That if a couple of guys get on a heater, they could be in good position because overall they are a stronger team than they were last year. Their defensive play is much better than it was last year. And so I think that's the big differentials. They just need to get their scoring going. The Rangers are just, I think, a lost cause. There's just no cohesiveness to that team. And that was the problem last year. Like they just didn't make enough significant changes to change that.
Yeah, I agree that there's the locker room just isn't cohesive there right
No.
now. Two teams that people expected a lot more from, but that are off to struggling starts: the Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champions, and the Toronto Maple Leafs at NHL 500. Your thoughts on can either of those two teams get back into contention?
I mean, I would say with the Leafs, no. I think they're in a similar boat to the Rangers in that the locker room just like it's just not working. Whatever it is, it's just not working. That whatever should work on paper isn't working in real life. And I think it's probably partially a hangover of the last two seasons. And what can they do differently? And they just don't know. So that's a big issue. I think that for the Panthers, coming back a third year, that's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. And at a certain point, they were going to run out of gas. And they just aren't able to play like a full 60 the way they were able to, like with that level of intensity and physicality that we're used to from that team.
And then last in the East right now, the Buffalo Sabres. And yet, they've shown some flashes, but inconsistency.
Yeah, that's it. I think the Sabres are in a really good position for them in terms of having a good get out of jail free card this year because, it's about working it out and they should be able to make some headway here. But if they don't, nobody's going to bat an eye.
All right. Well, that breaks down the East. We'll turn our attention to the West coming up. Plus, we'll take a look at some of the more exciting games around the league this weekend. All that coming up next on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that is why there is Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. So if you've put off organizing those finances, Monarch does it for you. It does all the heavy lifting where you link all your accounts in minutes. You'll see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending. You'll finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Monarch helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. You'll save even more money. You can then turn around and reinvest. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code LOCKEDONNHL.
Out west, we have to start with the Colorado Avalanche. Only one regulation loss in almost 6-7 weeks of hockey. I mean, they're not going to sustain a 17-1-5 mark, but boy, a plus
Are they though? That's the thing.
a plus 44 goal differential. No other team has more than plus 16. I mean, 10 wins in a row. How good is this team?
That's the thing is like you keep expecting the bubble to burst here and it hasn't. And so to me, I feel like, they're due for like maybe one dip this season, but they're just too good. They're too good. And like when you have like incredible scoring up top paired with goaltending that's playing very well, like it's difficult to crack.
It is difficult to crack. I think they are right now by far the best team in hockey, and yet the Dallas Stars only 5 points behind them. They've only lost 5 games out of 24 in regulation. They're 9-1-3 on the road, 8-1-1 in their last 10, but they're not getting a lot of attention because Colorado is just overwhelming everybody.
Yeah, and the Flyers played Dallas recently and just, got the game handed to them. It was not pretty from the Flyers' perspective, but I got to see just how Dallas is managing to achieve this, and they are a team that can play a full 60, and they're just relentless. And you cannot make the smallest of mistakes because they are going to jump on it and capitalize on it every single time. And I think that's been a huge part of their success.
Yeah, they do counterattack very, very
Oh
well.
my
They take
God.
advantage of your mistakes. And then the Minnesota Wild, notice the top 3 teams in the West all in the Central Division, but the Minnesota Wild have won 6 in a row, 8-1-1 in their last 10 as well. And after a slow start, they seem to have found themselves.
Yeah, I think, it did take them a little while to get going, but they are a very good team. And I think, obviously with a lot of the contract discussions behind them, like all that drama is gone and they can just sort of play hockey. And I think that has worked to their advantage.
Then you get to the top teams in the Pacific right now. Anaheim, 1 point ahead of Vegas and Seattle and LA. But out of those 4 teams, is there one that you think stands out as the most likely to be there at the end of the season?
I mean, you have to go with Vegas, right? Based on the track record, right? Like there's no other option there in terms of who's most likely to be closer to the top of the standings when all is said and done. I think, with Anaheim, I feel like Anaheim is more likely than Seattle to ride this out longer, and maybe they dip a little bit, but what they've been able to accomplish in the early season will provide those extra points so that they won't fall too far. And they'll be in a good position at the end of the season. Seattle, I feel like if their bubble bursts, it's just gonna like they're a team that cannot recover from that as easily because they have a lot more to lose, I think, than Anaheim does.
Yeah, and a lot of young guys on both teams, but in particular, I think with Seattle, the LA Kings 9-2-3 on the road, 2-4-3 at home. I mean, they have literally only won 2 out of 9 home games. They've got to be better than that, right? They've got to turn that around.
I mean, you would think, right?
Yeah, I mean,
But
you would think. Do they have enough juice to consistently win this season?
I think so. I think they do. It's just, it's just a matter of getting some confidence and gaining that consistency. But I think that the longer it takes them to do it, the harder time they're going to have to crawl back into more of a leader position.
3 teams now that I think have been pleasant surprises that are right on the playoff bubble: Utah, Chicago, and San Jose. Chicago and San Jose in particular coming off very long rebuilds that are now bearing some fruit. Utah kind of quietly sneaking up in the standings. Who's for real out of those 3? And I mean, wow, these teams are pleasant surprises so far.
I mean, I don't think any of them are, to be honest, but I just think that they have exceeded some expectations. I think the Blackhawks is the team that has done that to the highest degree so far. I think they're the ones with the biggest chance, but I think at some point, like the luck and the ability to maintain this over the course of the full season is going to run out. But yeah, I would say Chicago has the highest chance, but I don't think any of them will.
Edmonton and Winnipeg, two teams that have really disappointed this year. Winnipeg, obviously, with Hellebuck out, they've lost 3 straight. That's hurting them. And, he should return toward the end of the calendar year. That could help them. Edmonton has a minus 18 goal differential. They are struggling. They also seem to have chemistry issues, the way I'm looking at it. Can Edmonton bounce back?
I mean, on paper, yeah. I just don't know what it's going to take for them to bounce back to get back to, a Stanley Cup final. Now, are they a team that could squeak into the playoffs and suddenly turn it on? Yeah. That is something that's a very Edmonton thing to do, but I think obviously goaltending has always been an issue for them and continues to be an issue for them, and that's going to have to get buttoned up in order to give the offense the time to get it back.
And then you have the bottom 4 in the West, teams that I think are not likely to climb back into the standings. You have Vancouver, St. Louis, Calgary, and Nashville. Out of those 4 teams, is there anyone you think who could get into the race?
Nope. Not a chance. I mean,
and
honestly,
who do you think has the best chance of having the most ping pong balls in the lottery out of those 4?
I mean, you would think Nashville, but I don't know. Calgary has honestly surprised me this season. I mean, I didn't think they were going to be good, but I didn't think they were going to be this bad either.
I don't think a lot of people did it. And I think it really shows how much they relied on their goaltending last year to make the run that they did.
Well, yes. Thank you, Calgary, for Dan Vladar. Very happy about that.
All right. Well, that's our look at the Western Conference. Who's for real? Who's not? We have an exciting weekend of games. A lot of games today on Friday. We're going to take a look at the 3 most exciting games of the weekend. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On NHL podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you could even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. And hockey fans, you could use your knowledge of hockey and your favorite team on FanDuel. Check out the latest odds for their games this weekend. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Again, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. FanDuel.com. Check it out today. So this weekend, some pretty good games coming up. And a busy schedule on Friday, which is a little unusual, but because of the holiday weekend in the United States. What game do you have your eye on for Friday?
Yeah, so Utah has a tough job ahead of them facing the Dallas Stars here. And, we talked about Utah. Are they real? Are they not? And this is obviously a huge test for them. To see what they can do against an incredible Dallas Stars team who's only lost 2 games in their last 10. And, I think especially looking at the power play of Dallas, I think if Utah has any chance in this game, they're going to have to stay out of the box.
Definitely. And I think the fact that this is a road game for Utah makes it an even bigger test. If they can pull off that win, it's got to give them a jolt of confidence, especially the way the Stars have been playing as of late. Now, Saturday, not as many games as usual, probably because of the holiday schedule, but what game caught your eye?
mean, you got to go original six with a Detroit versus Boston game here. I think, both teams are uh, a little bit surprising this year. I think maybe Detroit in a negative way, Boston in a positive way. And for Detroit to win against Boston in this circumstance, I think would be really, really good for them. And they're pretty evenly matched statistically. And so I just think their style of play is pretty similar. And this is just going to be one of those knockdown, drag out, like fun NHL original six games. And that's why I would want to tune in.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. 7:00 Eastern time on Saturday, and 1 point right now separating those
Yeah.
two teams. And the thing is, the way the standings are, you win 2 games in a row, you can go from out of the playoffs to like second place in the conference almost.
Right. Cause there's only like 9 points separating first and last in the East. So everything is really close.
It's unbelievable. It really is. And then 4 games on tap for Sunday. But to me, the game that stands out the most, the Ottawa Senators in Dallas to take on the Stars.
Yeah, I mean, I think given that, the Stars are playing on Friday at home, I think that should be good for them. I'm more looking at this Ducks Blackhawks game here,
Ooh,
but
nice.
I think that is going to be more interesting because these are two young teams with a lot of energy and are exceeding expectations this season. And so, I want to see Connor Bedard up against, Cutter Gauthier and what they can do here. And they both have like some really good goaltending going on right now. Spencer Knight has had just such a renaissance in Chicago, like kind of getting out from underneath what was going on in Florida for him. Has really helped his career, and Lucas Dostal is likely to be the number one goaltender for the Czech team in the Olympics, and so he's got a lot to prove this year, and so I think this is going to be the more exciting matchup.
I'm looking forward to that one. Why do I get the feeling that this is going to be either an overtime or a shootout kind of a game? We've had a lot of those this year, a lot of
No,
overtimes.
we're tracking to have, I think, approximately, I read somewhere about 60 extra points floating around over the course of this season versus last year in terms of 3-point games versus 2-point games. And, we can go off on a tangent on the point system and the standings and all of that, but it is what it is. We can't change it for this year. That's for sure. But I do think it's changed things a lot. And that's partially why the standings are so tight in the East right now. It's because there's all these extra points.
Yeah, and Gary Bettman loves having the standings that tightly bunched together. Like you said, we could get into probably do a whole show on whether or not that should be changed. But right now, so many overtime and shootout games, and it's really keeping the standings very, very tight. But hey, makes for some great conversation when everybody's bunched up and close together like that. So no complaints on that. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On NHL your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until the Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. You could find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Don't forget, we are here Monday through Friday bringing you the biggest stories from around the NHL. I'll be back on Monday interviewing 3 of our local hosts about some of those big stories. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe, and thanks for listening to and watching the Locked On NHL Podcast.